A lot of people are not overspending because they love things. They're overspending because they are letting feelings lead what God called them to do. One of the biggest lies behind the I deserve this mentality spending is the belief that every strong feeling deserves a financial response. After stress, disappointment, exhaustion, or frustration, people often use spending as a reward. But budgeting God's way means recognizing that money is not just given to satisfy every emotion. It's given to be managed with wisdom, discipline, and purpose, even if it's just saving. When feelings start controlling spending, stewardship gets replaced by impulse. The first thing to remember is that we're called to serve God, so we have no debate on where we're going to go. We should be tithing the first fruit because the first fruit belongs to God. Somewhere along the way, on our walk, we misplace or forget what we were supposed to do, and we don't receive the encouragement to go back. And that's the unspoken song. Then, not a lot of people are talking about it, but it's not really a debate that we're going to get into today. You should have somebody that's willing to help you with accountability. You should have somebody set in place to teach you and to re-guide you, and then also re-educate and motivate you to go back to doing the right thing. But we don't have that a lot of times. And this is your accountability for today. You have to be responsible and you have to be financially sound in mind. Rather than just going out and buying random stuff at some fancy discount stores with the discount items. While you're out there going shopping, trying to buy up all this stuff that you don't need, you have to keep that in mind not to buy that stuff. And I can tell you from experience, I've done a lot of that, buying unnecessary things at these stores, thinking that I needed them, and they weren't really necessary. And I definitely didn't need them for that day. And I was just trying to buy things because I wanted to find comfort in my spending. Rather than me being responsible with my money, every time I got money, it was a nervous system. It was a nervous system transformation and training that I needed. I didn't realize that I was self-regulating by just spending money from past traumas of not having money. And then once I have it, I'm fearful of it. And somewhere along the line in my walk, when I wasn't stewarding my money properly, my money was just going everywhere and anywhere. I was buying things that didn't make sense. And then I'd find myself hungry 2 weeks later when I was single in my early 20s. And I didn't really have a lot of things to fall back on. Thankfully, I had some family members to help me out. And they weren't too happy with it, but they helped me in realizing that I needed to start being mindful of budgeting. You confuse relief with peace. Buying something in that moment can feel comforting, but comfort is not the same as wisdom. Peace comes from alignment, order, and self-control. When money becomes the tool that you use to soothe every bad day, then you are no longer leading your finances, your emotions are. That's why when you can say that you want financial freedom, but you still keep making purchases that sabotage stability, daily goals, and weaken discipline, and we could talk a lot about prosperity and manifesting this and manifesting that, but in reality, we were not manifesting anything except poverty. Affirmation sounds nice, but if your bank account is not reflecting it, it's just wishful thinking. Over time, emotional spending becomes more than a habit. It becomes a cycle of disobedience, disguised as reward. You have one mission and one job, one goal with those finances, and yet we would decide to blow it. You can start justifying unnecessary spending because it feels deserved, while ignoring the deeper responsibility of stewardship. And once that pattern becomes normal, budgeting starts to feel restrictive instead of protective. A budget is set in place to help you realize what money is going and how to spend your money responsibly. But growing up, majority of people were never taught this. They never learned how to budget. They never learned how to spend their money properly. But regardless of the age, we now have access to social media for like maybe 10 to 15 years. So we have no excuse as to why our money is not going where it should be. And I have no excuse to not know where my money is supposed to go to. That's for me as well. So it can't just be everything that we haven't learned within that time frame. Budgeting is God's way, It's not punishment. It's structure that keeps your money submitted to purpose instead of impulse. The Bible says that God will rebuke the devourer for our sake. And it also says that he will restore to us what the cankerworm and the locust have taken in another section of the Bible. And that's not to make you think that I'm just thinking this stuff up or mixing things up, but I'm just showing you how it correlates with one another. Financial provision is given because prosperity is already a part of God's plan for his children, and wealth is associated in the presence of God's people. But we don't live in that lifestyle of prosperity and wealth because we choose not to. And the reason being is because we're focused on lack and the lack of provision. We think that we're lacking something, but in reality, we're not. We have all the provision that we have and need, but we're just focused on the lack of what we don't have, where we're not at right now, that we haven't met that goal, that we're not at where we want to be at in life because of situations or things that happen. But rather than focusing on the lack, you have to focus on the provision. Like me, I'm not a multi-millionaire, but I have to see the fact that I'm living in a home. I got food. I have 2 vehicles. I have savings. I have investments, starting up investments, and I have other things associated with success. Not a lot of people even have that. 73% of Americans don't even have $2,000 saved at this point. So then where's my lack at? I have provision here. It's just a shifting of the mindset that I first needed to start out with. The first step to transforming is to challenge the phrase that I deserve this. You may deserve rest, healing, or peace, but that doesn't mean that every feeling should be answered with spending. God's way of budgeting begins with asking whether a purchase serves your assignment, your household, and your future. The question is not just, do I want this? The question is, does this align with stewardship? When you begin to analyze your spending habits and when you prioritize your spending, then you become self-aware. You start to include self-improvement, mental awareness, and stability. And your intentional readiness to transform your life through your mindset and to be ready with your actions for the next step of improving self-worth. This helped me redefine and reshape my view on my self-worth, my personal habits and how I think of myself, because I did not keep disliking myself or keep calling myself names based on what I viewed myself as with the situation that I was in. And when I changed my mindset, my situation changed. And when my situation changed, my habits improved. The second step is to give every dollar a purpose before your emotions try to claim it. Budgeting God's way means having money should always have a directive on where it should go. It should already be assigned towards needs, priorities, saving, giving, building, and preparing in your own life. When you pre-decide where your money goes, you stop letting every bad day rewrite your financial decisions. Order protects you from emotional spending. And once you figure out where your money is going, whether in the case of saving, investing, or generational wealth, don't forget to pay your tithe first. And when you determine where your money is going, you have less stress, less anxiety, less worry. That's because your mind is not focused on where you're spending your money because it's already set. So you reduce that stress. And when you set your intentions accordingly, and when the priorities are aligned, you stop stressing so much. And there's a saying that says that you're one paycheck away from losing it all. But I say we're one paycheck away from financial freedom and mental clarity. And all we have to do is just break one habit at a time. The third step to your change and your transformation is to rebuild your identity as a steward, not just a spender. You have to become someone who doesn't let every feeling access your wallet. That means practicing self-control, delaying unnecessary purchases, and remembering that discipline is not deprivation, it's protection. Real freedom comes when money reflects obedience, wisdom, and intention instead of temporary relief. Yes, you can start having fun with your money, but you have to have an idea of where you're going to put that money and how you're going to spend it. This is called intentional spending. You can budget monthly and intend on how to spend that money, like maybe taking $45 a month to go out to eat and go have fun and do things. These things are going to be things like movies or something like that, but it doesn't have to be every single day or every single week that you do these things. It may seem boring and irritating, and it may seem like you're not really living much of a life, but this is where self-discipline comes in. And when you have that self-discipline, some people will start looking at you funny. But here's the thing, when your priorities are set, these things will also change your mindset subconsciously around your life, and the people's way of viewing you will change as well. And it improves little by little. And that subconscious effort may not seem like much for the other person, but we're supposed to also be a representation of Christ. And as we're a representation of Christ with our control over the money, then other people will start to transform as well. You may not realize it, but a lot of that emotional spending often comes from a deeper need of comfort, reward, validation, or relief. What looks like treating yourself can actually be a pattern of letting stress and emotions override stewardship. That's why people can love God, they can want peace, and still keep making money decisions that pull them away from that order. These issues are not always the purchase itself. The issue is whether money is being used to serve purpose or to soothe your flesh. And you see it in everyday situations. Like someone who's had a hard day, they feel drained or frustrated, and buying something feels like the quickest way to feel better. And on the surface, it looks like a harmless reward, but underneath is really emotion trying to take control of stewardship. This is like letting hunger plan the whole grocery budget, because what feels urgent in the moment is not always what is wise for the long term. And then you go off and buy snacks, and instead of buying the food in a grocery list, you're now buying a bunch of junk food that you don't need. And that's what people miss. When feelings lead spending, purpose gets pushed aside. If your emotions budget for you, your future will keep paying for it. And here's the lie that we always tell ourselves: if it makes me feel better, it must be worth it. But that belief trains you to treat emotional relief like a financial priority. And over time, you start using your money as a coping mechanism instead of a tool. Budgeting God's way challenges that mindset by exposing the beneath under it. Not every desire is an instruction, and not every feeling deserves financial agreement. The truth is, budgeting is not bondage. Budgeting is stewardship. It's how you tell your money where to go instead of wondering where it went. This shift has to move from emotional spender to faithful steward, from impulse to order, and from self-reward to purpose-driven management. When your money is submitted to wisdom, it becomes easier to walk in peace, discipline, and alignment. And if you're ready to take that next step for yourself, and not just for me, this is a declaration for you. If you want to manifest that change in your life, I want you to comment steward below. And I'm also going to make another video on how God's way builds peace instead of pressure.